Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 4 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Dark Fury 1982. You want me to help someone who doesn't want it? Sure, that'll go over well. So this story happened over 20 years ago, back when I was in high school working for my first non-family job. I worked at a restaurant that offered a buffet and pizza, a game room, and drinks. No, not one with pizza in the name either. The location in question no longer exists, so I feel more comfortable telling this story now. At the time, I, 17 male, was working on a Sunday. I was asked to work the bar open shift 9 to 4. Around 12 or 1, the closer would come in. I was able to do everything except pour alcohol and do register for sales related to alcohol. No big deal. Football comes on, Packers versus Cowboys, and soon the closer came in. She, 30s, has some sort of disability given a speech impediment, but I neither knew what it was, asked, or even cared about it. I had put in my 2 weeks notice, as I got sick of the closing shifts I would get, which should be until 10 p.m., but sometimes going past midnight, in violation of my work permit. Closer comes in during a slow period and tells me she's got it handled for now. Great, that leaves me with nothing really to do. So I pick up a tub and start bussing tables, cleaning them for those who may not know. We have 2 managers on duty that day, one I liked, Madge, and one I didn't like so much. Let's call him Rob. Screw you, Rob. Wait, that's my line. Madge sees me bussing and asks what I'm doing, so I let her know what happened. She sees the bar area getting behind with dirty glasses to be cleaned, along with a long line of customers, and asks me to go back to help. I figure I'll do the glasses and let her handle the customers. That way, it's less stress for her. I get there, get going on glasses, and after a few, she sternly tells me she had it under control. I explain that I was asked by the manager to help out over here. She angrily says I'm not needed here. This left me puzzled, but I went back to bussing tables as I couldn't find any manager at the time. A couple minutes later, Madge sees me and sternly asks why I wasn't doing what I was told. I again explained what happened, that she asked me to help, but my help wasn't welcomed. I was trying to keep the peace between us and didn't want to look like I was doing nothing, so I was trying to help get tables turned over quickly, since we went to having a host do seating given how busy it got. I get told again to go back, do glasses like I was, and to get her if anything else happens. So I go back, knots in my stomach, for I knew a storm was brewing. Deep breath taken, I drop my tin off for the dishwashers and go back to the bar. Her line is at least a dozen deep, only 1 register, and no clear counter space for dirty cups to go. So I grab a couple cups, start washing, but next thing I know, a hand grabs my wrist. I turn over, and here it's the closer reprimanding me. Angry at being grabbed like that, I say to her, "Don't you ever grab me like that with that kind of hostility. I was told to be here and to help you by the manager. I do not appreciate you grabbing me like that. And if you ever do that again, I promise you I will consider it an attack on me personally, and I will defend myself appropriately." At the end of that, Manager Rob comes around, grabs her off to the side, leaving me to manage the bar by myself. The patrons there who saw what happened sided with me, saying I handled it about as well as I could have, and that she was out of line. Nice to have that validation, but it mattered not. A few minutes later, I get told to go home. Wait, what? Me? Don't I get a chance to say my side of what happened? No, go home. If I leave, I'll never set foot in this store again. I say, giving one last chance to do the right thing. I don't care, go home. Fine, I went home. Rob didn't witness any of what happened earlier, to my knowledge, and sided with her, and didn't even bother getting my side of the situation. So I left. The rest of the week, I was supposed to be closing the game room 4 to 9. I called the next day after school, got the main manager, explained what happened, and said I cannot in good faith work the rest of my notice given the hostile work environment that has come up. He thanked me for my time and ensured if I ever needed a job in the future that I would have one there. Thankfully, I didn't need to go back, but it was still nice to know. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Lurker2358. It says, "You may like Madge, but this situation is on her. The second time she sent you to the bar, she should have accompanied you to enforce her instructions. It's not on you to defend her orders." Another commenter down below called Contrantier said, "Rob probably knew you were on your way out, so he chose to act like a spineless loser and pretended to take her side. Maybe he was just trying to get some. What a wimp." Okay, first of all, I just want to say I'm very upset with this Rob guy for bringing down our name. Secondly, I can kinda see this one from the closer's point of view because they're in their 30s and the 17-year-old whippersnappers trying to butt in on their area, trying to get work done over there, making it look like they're not doing everything they're supposed to be doing. I probably would have kicked you out of my area as well. However, even with that being said, if my manager came to me and said, "Hey, I want this person to help you out for a little while," I would say, okay, because that's my manager, not just the 17-year-old coming up to me and saying, "Hey, I'm supposed to do this." OP, I do feel like none of this is your fault though. You were young, 17, and honestly, that's probably not the best place for a minor to be working anyway, in a bar with people who are drinking, and there's always inappropriate stuff going on. Yeah, no, there's plenty of other places that you could work that would be much better for somebody of your age. Okay, before we move on to the next story, I want to ask a question of the audience. This is more so pointed towards the people who are on YouTube because they can comment down below. But I got a comment on one of my videos a couple days ago that said I was being overly critical of the OPs in these stories recently. So I would like you guys all to comment down below on YouTube and let me know your thoughts on this one. Am I overly critical of the OPs these days? Have my opinions really changed from the time I started doing this to now, 5.5 years later? I'd really like to know what you all think. So on YouTube, comment down below and I'll try to respond to as many as I can. This story comes to us from Unlikely Ad 2116. "We applied for every position we were qualified for." This story is called The Unpromotables. Important backstory. In the USA, government jobs are under the civil service system. This is supposed to ensure that government jobs are given out based on what you know, not who you know. For example, to get a job as an entry-level accountant, one would need to meet the minimum qualification of a Bachelor of Science in Accounting. Periodically, a test would be given for that position. The people who score highest on the test are first in line for jobs. This uses the rule of 3. The job is supposed to go to one of the 3 highest scoring candidates who agree to accept the job if offered. Promotion examinations are held the same way. Needless to say, managers and politicians hate this. There was a group of employees at my state agency who took every promotion exam we were qualified for, and generally got top scores on all of them. We all had excellent work records, and even awards for productivity, innovation, and going the extra mile. None of us had any black marks in our personal files other than maybe a counseling memo. That is basically a slap on the wrist, less formal than a write-up. Boss told employee not to do X ever again. However, we had problems like use of offensive language. We said inappropriate things like, "Why are we doing this way? This is awkward and inefficient. We can streamline this process." Bosses don't like this kind of language. We also brought offensive materials into the workplace, such as, "Look at this. It says right here in Chapter X, Section Y of Z state law that we're doing this wrong." Bosses don't like this either. So now we have a group of highly qualified, motivated employees sitting on top of the promotion list. The people the bosses wanted to promote were lower on the list. But if 3 of us applied, were interviewed, and said yes, then the job legally had to be given to one of us. We got to know each other because the lists were available to employees. We started with calling each other. "Did you apply for X promotion?" We sort of became a support group. We'd even meet for lunch or drinks after work sometimes, and called ourselves the Unpromotables. Then we realized something. Why are we only applying for the jobs we want? This is where the Malicious Compliance comes in. The bunch of us started applying for every promotion we were on the list for. No matter how bad the job, how mean the boss, how toxic the office, no matter what the duties, we all applied. And when asked if we'd accept the job if offered, we all said yes. We heard through the grapevine that this was driving management insane. Their teachers' pets and brown nosers wanted promotions, but we were blocking them. Whenever management tried something shady, they quickly found out that all of us knew our rights under state civil service law backwards and forwards. It was both funny and frustrating to see management leave a position unfilled rather than give it to any of us. This was also not popular with the employees in those offices, who now had to pick up the slack from the vacant position, which was above their pay grade, as well as their own, with no increase in pay. I was actually offered a promotion once, and the hiring manager had started onboarding me, but the big boss over both offices shot it down because they didn't want to lose me from my old position. That boss blocked my promotions for over a decade. Sorry this doesn't have a happy ending. That was still the status quo when I took early retirement the second I turned 55. Was planning on working longer, but 30 plus years of a steady diet of toxic crap was drastically affecting my physical and mental health. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Sparkicidal. It says, "I'm just impressed that you put up with someone blocking your promotions for a decade. I would have left way before that." I don't think this commenter has any understanding of government jobs and the benefits that go along with them. Because yes, they stayed where their promotions were being blocked for a decade, but when they retire from the position that they're in, the retirement benefits are that good. It's a government job. You're not going to leave it and go somewhere else that isn't a government job and doesn't guarantee your retirement benefits. Now, I could go into another point on this one where OP and the other people were blocking jobs from other people who actually deserve to get them, but I don't want to be seen as shitting on OP again, so I'm gonna stop here. OP, congrats on your early retirement. I hope you're enjoying every minute of it. Our next story comes to us from Not Your Nanny. I have great respect for accountants, but any competent accountant has at least a touch of OCD. It's really necessary for them to do their job properly, but some have more of it than most. At one time, we had a controller who really put the obsessive in obsessive compulsive, and she decided that we were a little too fast and loose with the company credit card, which we were at that point. So she created a payment request form and wrote a policy to go with it. The form wasn't unreasonable. In fact, we still use it today. The policy was another story. The form was to be used, per the policy, for all uses of the company credit card, which we used for everything because the owner got airline mileage on it. It had a 6-figure limit, and it wasn't unusual for us to have to make a mid-month payment to keep from going over. He got a lot of miles, all uses, no matter how small. The policy? Each form had to be signed by either the owner or 2 higher-ups, one of whom was frequently not in the office. I'm the IT guy, and we're a retail store chain, and a pretty successful one, so there are a lot of IT issues that are extremely time sensitive. Gotta keep the cash registers running full speed, but can be fixed with very cheap parts. And I was having to get signatures to order $25 parts off of the internet, every time, with one of the signatures being from someone who was in the office less often than the owner. So it was pretty obvious to me that the correct solution was to have the owner sign it all by himself. He always understood. All I had to do was tell him a cash register was down, and he got it. I do like working for smart people. Until the day I took the 3rd form into his office within an hour or so from his signature because one of the other 2 people who could sign was out of town. He told me he'd look into this as he signed it, and as I walked by the controller's office on the way back to mine, he was already there, having a very polite, they were both professionals, conversation. And from that day forward, the executive VP, who'd been around from the beginning and was trusted as much as the owner's own family, could sign my form all by himself. And I now have signature authority up to $500, as well as my own company credit card, with a much smaller limit. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Hi Sorcerer Greg. It says, "Damn, that company sounds like a pretty nice place to work. Even the person messing things up was trying to do good things, laugh out loud. Opie responded and said, "At this point, I've been here over 30 years and have no plans to retire from anywhere else. It's rare to work at a job for someone who actually gives a darn about their employees, but once you find one, you want to keep it." I feel like this story is a case of management making policies for people that they don't directly manage again. We've seen this many times on the channel. Management really needs to know what's going on at the lower levels before they can make changes so significant like this one. This story comes to us from Mustard Unavailable. Tell you, in front of your other customers and employees, why I don't want you as a provider? Sure. This happened around 2012 and deals with my internet provider. They sucked majorly. Days with no internet and no warnings. The last straw was when there was no internet for over 2 weeks. Called them and they said they'll send someone to come look, but nope, no one came. Went to their branch office and one of the higher-ups finally put on his big boy undies and did some work. As an apology, they told me they'll only charge me the days I did have internet. It took 3 more days for me to have internet again. Then the bill came and it was higher than what I should be paying for. Went to the branch office the same day I got the bill. Before I could say my grievance, the employee told me I'd have to pay a penalty since I'll be late in paying, and that just made me blow my gasket. They wouldn't explain crap to me, so I told them I want them gone. I didn't want them as a provider anymore. I was there at 9 a.m. and done at 2 p.m. They really tried to get me to stay, but when they realized I was set in my decision, they finally complied. One of the things I had to do was call one of their reps or whoever to tell them my reasons for dropping them. The phones were by the entrance and waiting room. Went there and some assistant was watching me like I committed a horrible crime. Called them and that took me close to 10 minutes. When someone finally answered, they asked me my list of problems with them, not sure what for, they didn't really give a crap about them before. So proceeded to tell each and every F-up they did and the last straw. It was in front of waiting customers and those coming in. The assistant looked embarrassed and ready to murder me. It got way worse as several customers walked out after hearing me. When it was all over, even one of the managers was trying to guilt trip me for talking crap about them. Had to pay the bill and the penalty, but by then, they wanted me out quick. I got a better internet provider. I also had last laugh when I lambasted them on Facebook. A lot of comments really laying on how awful they were. This story reminded me of a phone call that I made a few months ago after fiber had been installed in our neighborhood. I called up the cable provider we had previously for our internet and let them know that I was going to switch to the new provider unless they could give me similar service for a better price. To which they exclaimed, absolutely not. They didn't have anything better and they couldn't match the price. So they got very quickly ditched in favor of the fiber line. I'm now enjoying a very nice symmetrical 3 GB service that's 3 GB down and 3 GB up, and these videos make it up to YouTube and the podcast very quickly. So Kojiko, you're missing out because I tell all my neighbors about my better service now, and I can guarantee you that a bunch of them have switched over. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.